Good afternoon, and thank all of you for joining us today. And I am certainly proud to be joined by U.S. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson, and I want to thank Secretary Johnson and all of our federal partners for their quick response and for the way that they've worked with us here, not just at the state level, but at the local level, to respond to this unprecedented historic flooding event, but also to help us plan and transition into an effective and efficient and very quick recovery. FEMA teams are starting today to make assessments. I am happy to say that the first post-flood Small Business Administration Center opens today in Livingston Parish in the town of Walker. I want to thank the Louisiana Department of Economic Development for their hard work as they begin opening these centers. I want to stress that we are certainly not out of the woods, and as I've been saying for 6 days now, this is an ongoing event. We still have flood waters, and in fact, in some cases, record flood waters as they move south in the Mermentau River in the west and Amite River over on this side of the Mississippi River. Housing will certainly be a major issue. And I want to stress again that if you have not yet done so, you need to register your damages at disasterassistance.gov. That's www.disasterassistance.gov, or by calling 1-800-621-FEMA, 1-800-621-3362. Even if you're not in one of the 20 parishes that are part of the federal major disaster declaration, you can and should register your disaster assistance claim by calling the number that I just gave or going online. Thus far, we've had 86,500 registrations with FEMA for disaster assistance. As many are still waiting on waters to recede, others are just now beginning the process of ripping out carpet, ripping out wet drywall, and removing damage from their homes. I encourage all of you, before that process begins, document your damages by taking photographs. I urge everyone to visit emergency.la.gov for tips on the cleanup and protecting your own health during this process. Again, that's emergency.la.gov. It's very important that you clean out your homes and as soon as possible restore electricity and air conditioning to make sure that you don't suffer mold contamination of your home unnecessarily. As you might imagine, I've traveled from the southeast to the southwestern portions of the state over the last few days, and together we are working very hard to make sure that every available resource is getting into the hands of the people all across the 20 parishes who most need it. We're working around the clock to ensure that no request goes unanswered. As of today, we are sheltering 4,072 people. This number changes rapidly, but generally the trend is downward, and that is a good thing. Thus far, more than 30,000 people have been rescued and over 1,400 pets. I'm very sorry to report that the number of confirmed fatalities that are caused related to this storm is now at 13. But with well over 40,000 homes impacted so far, I want to tell you that our local first responders, aided by their state partners, state police, wildlife and fisheries, the fire marshal's office, and the National Guard, have done a tremendous job of safeguarding lives and preserving property. With the 40,000 homes that have been impacted so far, that parishes have reported to state and federal assessment teams as they begin going out into the affected parishes. So in Louisiana, we're on our taking care of one another is a way of life, and we're on our way from response to recovery. And I just ask everyone to continue to be patient, to continue to work with us, and as I always do, I ask for continued prayers for the people of Louisiana. And at this time, I'm going to be followed by Secretary Johnson, after which Congressman Cedric Richmond is going to speak to you, and following Congressman Cedric Richmond, we're going to hear from the CEO of the American Red Cross. So at this time, Secretary Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Governor Edwards. I'm here today with the governor, members of his cabinet, the governor's Homeland Security and first responder and law enforcement officials, as well as Congressman Cedric Richmond. Congressman Garrett Graves was with us earlier. He had to leave. And the head of the Red Cross, Gail McGovern, Deputy Administrator of FEMA, Joe Nimich, the Regional Administrator, Tony Robinson, and our Federal Coordinating Officer, Jerry Stoller. I have toured the shelter at Lamar Dixon in Ascension Parish, Lamar Dixon Shelter. I've toured some of the more affected areas, including in St. Amant and Ascension Parish. I'm here at the Ops Center. I've just sat in with the governor on a briefing by his cabinet on the current situation on the ground. If I had to characterize the mood here in the community, it would be what one first responder said to me a few hours ago, whose home had been severely damaged by the flooding. Our hearts are broken, but our faith is strong. The federal government is here. We have been here. We will be here as long as it takes to help this community recover. The President has declared a major disaster declaration affecting 20 parishes. That means fundamentally two things: individual assistance to those who have been personally affected, who've had damage to their homes, and public assistance. As the governor said, to become eligible for individual assistance, you must apply by calling either 1-800-621-3362 or through www.disasterassistance.gov. At this moment, we've had some 86,000 individuals apply for federal assistance. This includes assistance in the repair of your homes and replacement of certain personal items. Once eligible, money can be transferred to you in a matter of just a few days. We're here to provide public assistance as well in terms of the repair of infrastructure, roads, and schools. At present, there are some 950 FEMA personnel on the ground. We expect another 750, possibly more, in the coming days. We have helped by contributing cots, meals, blankets, water, and other things. Our Coast Guard, which is also part of the Department of Homeland Security, is here on the job. In the hours immediately after the flooding began, they engaged in search and rescue. The Coast Guard continues to monitor the situation in the rivers, monitor the water levels. The SBA, the Small Business Administration, which is a federal agency, is also here to help with small businesses. The Red Cross, headed by Gail McGovern, is also present. And I have to say, this has, for those of us who have toured the affected areas, been a reaffirmation in terms of our ability, when a disaster, when a crisis happens, to pull together at the federal, state, and local level to help the public good and to help individuals, to help the people that we are sworn to serve. I've been remarkably impressed not only by the spirit and the faith, but also by the level of volunteerism that I see in this community and in this state. Governor, I want to thank you and commend you for your leadership in the last week or so. It has been exemplary, and I want to thank you for that. I will be briefing the President on the situation that I see here at some point very soon. He is getting daily briefings on the situation here and cares greatly about the people of Louisiana. And on behalf of the President and myself, I want everyone here to know that the federal government is here. We're devoting lots of resources, lots of people to this effort, and we pray for everyone here. God bless you.
Congressman.
Good afternoon. Let me start by thanking Governor John Bel Edwards for his leadership during this crisis. And I have been here, unfortunately, during Katrina as both a victim and a state rep, and he has provided a very steady leadership, especially during the rescue portion of this disaster. I also want to thank Secretary Jay Johnson, who is here today because he cares and because it sends a message that the federal government has our back. And when you're a state like Louisiana, where it seems that we're fighting one thing after another. It's always reassuring to know that you have a federal partner that will be here to help. I also want to say something about what we're dealing with. This flood affected so many of our parishes, but it also affected Baton Rouge, which is our state capital where so many of our government workers and our first responders live. And the fact that they are showing up to work every day, they are still making sure that we transition from rescue to recovery, even though they themselves have been victims of this storm. So we have to keep in mind that many of the people you see rescuing and many of the people you see out here working to make sure that recovery starts are also victims. And then let me just conclude with this. And I think that it is important that people hear this. No matter what neighborhood you're in, no matter if it's rural or if it's urban, no matter if you're rich, no matter if you're poor, this recovery is going to make it to everyone. And so we may not be on the national news as a headline. We are a headline to the people in the state of Louisiana that run government, and we are a headline to the President of the United States, who has had his Secretary of Homeland Security, Administrator Fugate, and those who bear the responsibility of helping us recover here on the ground. So what we have seen, and I have seen firsthand, our residents are back. As the water recedes, they're gutting their homes, they're remediating their homes, and they're doing the hard work that it takes to start recovery. And our commitment is that we will be partners on the street in every community to make sure we do what is necessary to help our residents get through this disaster and move forward and heal the community. So thank you very much, and not only the governor and the secretary, but all of the leadership that stands behind me that has been sacrificing from day one and will keep sacrificing until the job is done. And I'll be followed by Red Cross.
Thank you. Let me start by saying, on behalf of the entire American Red Cross, our hearts go out to the people of Louisiana. This is the second major flood in just 5 months, and it is by far the largest operation the American Red Cross has engaged in since Superstorm Sandy. It's absolutely enormous. You can drive through the affected area, and as far as the eye can see, you can see people's belongings on the curb. You can see where the water level was. It's really devastating, and it's extremely difficult for the residents here. I also want to thank Governor Edwards. Your leadership has been incredible through all of this, and your state emergency management crew and team and local emergency management have just been phenomenal, and it's a privilege to be able to work with you. Secretary Johnson, FEMA is doing such an outstanding job here, and the coordination is tremendous. And when I think of how fast they're moving assistance to the people of Louisiana, it's really stunning. So we appreciate that as well. The American Red Cross has been sheltering a lot of residents here. We're at a peak, there were 10,000 people in shelters in the state. Last night, there were 8,000 in total. As people start moving back into their homes, we're going to move from sheltering to fanning out into the neighborhood and helping people there. We've already served 100,000 meals and snacks to the people in the shelters. We're bringing a group of emergency response vehicles that can serve food, fan in and out of the neighborhoods, give people hot meals, and also start distributing some bulk relief items like pails, like bleach, like gloves, like mops, the things people need to start mucking out of their homes. I would ask the residents of Louisiana to be careful as they start moving back. It's been my experience that after flooding, it's followed by home fires. So make sure your wiring is safe, make sure the house is free of mold. We are going to be here in the community until everybody is back on their feet. And we believe that at the end of this operation, we will have spent about $30 million. We're prepared to serve 1.5 million meals and snacks. Our volunteers are incredible, and there's been an amazing outpouring of volunteers right here. So it's neighbors helping neighbors, which is great. If anyone wants to volunteer for the American Red Cross, please go to our website, redcross.org. People here could use help. And if anybody wants to make a financial donation, that would be greatly appreciated as well. Thank you.
At this time, we're going to take questions. I do want to follow up on something Gail just said. The only downside to not being prominently displayed in the news across the country as it relates to this event is that perhaps the national attention isn't on it as it relates to donations to the Red Cross. I don't complain about the assistance that we've gotten from the federal government because it has been superb. But so I would ask those people watching in Louisiana and around the country to seriously consider making a generous donation to the American Red Cross today so that we can speed assistance to those who are needing to recover. Okay, we will now take a few questions. Yes, sir.
Governor, can you give the folks out there a timetable as to when assistance will be coming? A lot of people have been asking us over the last couple days, as they have you, when are you going to start DSNAP? When are these other programs going to be stand up? So do you have a timetable? I know you had mentioned a few already, but if you could just give us that.
Well, DSNAP will start Monday, and I want to say it's 7 parishes. I don't think Marquita's with. No, I think we increased that. It's going to be 7 parishes will be opening on Monday. Those offices will be open for 6 weeks. And over the next 3 weeks, we will be in all 20 of the parishes that are declared. Each parish will be for a week. There is an announcement that I think has been made officially to that effect. So the DSNAP will start on Monday, and it will start in those parishes that are most affected. So in terms of further effort, I would remind you that we are still in a response mode as well. In Southern Ascension Parish, but also going down now into St. James and potentially St. John, but also in Acadia Parish on the west side with the Marmontel River, down in Jefferson Davis Parish. But we are transitioning very quickly to recovery. We are working again today to formulate a more complete plan for transitioning out of response to recovery and what that means with respect to the housing options that we will pick from. There's nothing easy about this because we have folks from all demographics, some of which had flood insurance, some didn't. Some have the ability to rent or to stay in a hotel, others do not. We have some places where there's capacity with rental units and hotels and other places where there are not. Every home that has been damaged, as you know, is not damaged to the same extent. So it may be very easy to get some people in, but very difficult to get others. And so you have to bring the right mix of options to bear as you resource this effort. And that takes some time. And we've been working extensively, not just here in this building, but going out and meeting the victims to find out what the mix is so that we bring into the state the resources necessary. We're going to have another meeting this afternoon to try to make some final decisions, and we will be communicating those decisions to people very soon. I'm going to continue to ask for patience on this, and I'm asking people to understand we're working as fast as we can work to make this happen. But if people will register their assistance claim with FEMA in the way that we've mentioned, many of those people are going to have some dollars available to them in as little as 48 hours. So if they will just continue that process as they're deemed eligible, the spigots will be turned on.
A question to Secretary Johnson. There's been a lot of criticism about President Obama not visiting Louisiana. Will you be recommending that he come to Louisiana and visit, and what else will you be telling him?
Well, of course, the president can't be everywhere. I can tell you that the president has been closely monitoring the situation here in Louisiana. He made the federal declaration in a matter of hours. It was expedited. We're up to 20 parishes now. I will be briefing him on what I see here and what the status of our recovery and response efforts are. Administrator Fugate did the same thing after his visit here 2 days ago. So the president is closely monitoring the situation through his cabinet, through his FEMA administrator, and is very much on top of it.
Will you recommend that he
As I say, the president can't be everywhere. I know he has a very busy schedule this fall and in the coming days, and he is closely monitoring the situation. When you're the chief executive of the entire U.S. government, you can't be everywhere, including places you would like to be. But through me and through Craig Fugate, I know he is very much on top of this situation.
Our press
Secretary-
briefing yesterday from the White House press pool began with the president playing around a golf with 3 people. You sit there and say twice the president can't be everywhere, but people in Louisiana are dying. How hard is it you as the Homeland Security Director to know that your updates are going to the president on the golf course?
Well, as I said, he is very much on top of the situation, and I know that he is aware of the level of federal assistance that can be provided and is being provided, and I'll be briefing him myself right after this visit.
Secretary Johnson, quick question on a different matter. Yesterday, a federal judge in Arizona issued an order to release some photos from a detention center of the Border Patrol in Tucson, Arizona, that paint a really bad picture in regards to the treatment of the prisoners there. Can you talk about what is your agency doing to address this issue?
I'm aware of the decision. I have not personally reviewed it. I have no comment at this point.
Can you all say how many housing vouchers, if any, have been given out here in Louisiana?
Jerry? The question was the number of housing vouchers that have been given out. And
Or like hotel stays or whatever?
Right. Okay, FEMA no longer is in the, we no longer issue vouchers. With regards to temporary housing, we're working very closely with the state to look at all possible options. And as the governor mentioned, depending on the extent of damage to a survivor's home, that will dictate what solution each survivor household will be made available to them.
Governor,
yes.
in terms of the house-to-house searches, can you say kind of how that's going, how many more days you think it's going to take before they can search all the houses and the cars that need to be searched? And then has any FEMA aid started flowing to the state or to individuals at this point that you know of?
Yes, the last question first, and I think this was briefed to you. A number of individuals who have registered have already been deemed eligible for assistance, and the spigots have been turned on. And whether we are able to deliver that assistance electronically or by mail depends, it determines how fast it gets to them. Typically, it's going to be about 48 hours, a little longer if it's by mail. Secondly, with respect to the urban search and rescue, we are very thankful to have a team in from Texas to assist in this effort, but the effort overall is being led by Butch Browning, the state fire marshal, who really developed urban search and rescue here in Louisiana, and they're doing a phenomenal job. I believe they're just about finished with Livingston Parish, and it's obviously necessary to do this secondary search. And I want to make sure people understand what we're talking about. The people we rescued from homes are those people that we knew about that were stranded, or those people who called and asked for help. Now that we're past that point in the crisis in most of the area with undergoing response, it is now time to go back and do a comprehensive search, house by house, whether or not there was a call for assistance, to make sure there isn't someone in that house who was unable to call for assistance and who may need help. But it's not just the houses, it's the automobiles. Because we had automobiles that were washed off of roads and down creeks and rivers, and so we have to go make sure that we're searching automobiles too. That's proceeding in good fashion. We've also dispatched a urban search and rescue team to Ascension Parish today, and those activities are ongoing. And this is a partial report of what happened yesterday, but it'll kind of give you the idea of how important this is. Of the first 800 homes that we searched yesterday in Livingston Parish, the secondary search, more than 30 homes had people who had yet been assisted. They didn't know how to ask for help, I guess. Many of them were elderly and frail, and we were able to go in there and help. And in those 30 homes, there were 52 individuals, and unfortunately, we discovered one decedent. And that was the 12th confirmed fatality. So it is critically important that we go door to door. Unlike some things that you saw in Katrina, we are not having in this particular incident to force entry in very many cases at all, so we're not breaking down doors or breaking windows. We are able to mark the residents as having been searched with chalk rather than with paint. So we've learned a lot of lessons over the years, and we're bringing them to bear as best we can in this urban search and rescue, but it is critically important. And I want to address something about the question that was just asked to Secretary Johnson. And it is easy to focus, I guess, on things that haven't happened. I want you to know that within hours of me requesting a federal declaration, the President granted the declaration and called me to discuss it. Secondly, I've been in contact with the White House just about every day through Valerie Jarrett and others. He dispatched Administrator Fugate, the head of FEMA, who spent several hours here with me on Tuesday. Today we have Secretary Jay Johnson here with us, as you can see. He was dispatched here by the President. Today, General Ling Yao, who is the four-star general over the Guard component and a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, spent hours with us here today. We've had the Major General in charge of this district of the Corps of Engineers here today. And so I am not complaining in any way about our federal partnership. The President is welcome to visit whenever he wants to visit. And when he wants to visit, we're going to receive him, and we're going to do whatever is necessary to make sure that that visit goes off without a hitch. However, if you will remember, a few weeks ago when the Vice President came to the memorial of the police officers who were shot and killed, if you will recall the impact that that had on our community with respect to closing down interstates, the security that was required, and all of the police officers locally who had to be taken from other duties in order to provide that security, quite frankly, that is not something that I want to go through right now. And so while the President is welcome to visit, I would just as soon he give us another week or two, get back to a greater sense of normalcy here, and then he can visit. Well, I'll say that differently. He can visit whenever he wants to. Yes, sir.
For you, just I think a couple of days you were talking about midterm or long-term solutions for housing. Has that been analyzed, and is there?
Yeah, and we mentioned that a while ago. We are continuing to analyze it. We can't get the right mix determined until we know more about the population who's affected. And we're working feverishly to figure out exactly who they are, whether they had flood insurance or they didn't, whether they have help to get back in their homes, whether their homes can be fixed in a matter of hours or whether it's going to take days or weeks, and where all of these people are geographically. And when we have a better feel, we will know whether and how many manufactured housing units to order, what the rental capacity is, and which changes because we have a lot of people in hotels today, for example, and that sort of thing. You will be having more definitive announcements forthcoming very quickly, and I've told the team this morning that we're going to work this evening and tonight so that if possible, we will have more definitive announcements tomorrow before the weekend so people can know what to expect and when they can expect it.
One last question. For the Congressman,
I'm sorry, can we get an update on schools and what's happening?
You can. I'm not sure that this is the best group to do that. We will get you the information on schools, but that really wouldn't be the best question to ask of the group that are here right now.
for the Congressman and Governor, there's been a lot being said in the last couple days, as you know, about the Comite diversion project. Like in New Orleans, there was billions of dollars spent on flood protection upgrades after Katrina. Do you think that this flooding, as unfortunate as it is, will send a clarion call to double down on those efforts to finally fully fund this project and get it done? And do you think that it would have made a difference had that been up and running in this flood?
Well, the Comite diversion project is very important. It is 2 decades in the making, and there's not much progress, as you know. It is impossible to know whether the areas along the Comite would have flooded had that project been in place. But the fact of the matter is we had record flooding everywhere. Now, we are going to move forward with that project as quickly as possible. I've already had a meeting today with Major General Weir of the Corps of Engineers, and in fact, he is meeting with a separate group, including Congressman Graves right now, discussing that project, and we're trying to get it moving as quickly as possible because we do believe that it would aid in terms of flood control, but it obviously wasn't in place, and it's hard to guess what, just to what extent the flooding would have been lessened. And I'll be followed by Congressman Richmond if you've got any ideas on that, since you wrote.
If history is any indicator, which I think it is, we made a lot of noise a long time about flood control, levee protection in New Orleans. Katrina came, and we got unprecedented money from the federal government to get it done. If you just look back to Hurricane Isaac, the West Shore Project, which protects the river parishes, had been dangling for 43 years. We finally got an engineer's report, and we're now going to move forward with the West Shore Project. And I think the Commit project will go in a similar fashion, one, because it's highlighted the importance. Now, I just want to say and caution, similar to what the governor said, I don't think there's been mapping or anything yet that will say what effect not having it had. But what we do know is that in a state like Louisiana, every diversion project we have, every levee that we have makes us safer. And I'm sure that the delegation will go back up with renewed vigor to try to get it expedited. And what events like this do is magnify to the core what we have been fighting for the whole time. So I would suspect that this will go along the same lines of West Shore Project and Metro New Orleans flood recovery projects.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.